All right, so thank you all for showing up on this. This is like an unannounced. Well, I announced it, but it wasn't really planned. Just a little something. I was going to do it next week, but I'll be at the beautiful Veterans Administration for half the day next week on Wednesday. It looks like that's a whole different story. But God love them that they're there and they do provide good care. I don't care what anybody said. Um, so today, with it being, getting ready for the holidays, I would like to invite people to join me on something and try this, right? Which is, we're always talking, all of the internet people always talk about breakthroughs, changing, doing all this stuff. So the other day I was doing something at the Addiction Treatment Center, and, we started talking about a process, and, um, and so I'm teaching it. And of course, I challenged them to do it, knowing not to sound very cynical, but at this addiction treatment place, it's like, there's 38 people in the room. I said, maybe three you'll do it. Cause, some of it's, that's a whole different nightmare when you work in alcohol and drug treatment. But so anyway, so I'm sitting there thinking, but at the same time, I'm like, well, why the hell ain't I doing this that I'm teaching them to do? Right? On how to remove these blocks. In their case, it's addiction or negativity or anger, whatever their other major malfunctions are. Um, so anyway, so I'm like, I'm going to try this myself. So I started doing it. So then I could come back and say, how many people did it? And like two people out of the group did. And I said, well, I did it too, right? And and so that kind of sold me on the idea, which reminds me, before I do this and invite you on this challenge, if you look at like, and if you have a personal opinion about some of these people, kind of set it aside. But if you look at like, um, Elon Musk, Da Vinci, Nicholas Tesla, even Bill Gates, Michael Jordan, uh, and a couple other sports figures be like Tom Brady, Peyton Manning. I mean, the list could go on, and I would think of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Anthony Hopkins, right? What do they all have in common? Right? What do they all have in common? And it could be a lot of things. We could guess, but you know, it's not necessarily they're the smartest people, well, except for Nicholas Tesla, right? But we don't know what his IQ was, right? Or Da Vinci. But yeah, they're intelligent, but a lot of people are intelligent, right? And they don't change the world. And all of those people, in a way, in some way, impacted, the society, right? So there's a lot of things. But if you look at it, if you step back one thing and look at it, whatever they were doing, they fall in love with the process of doing it. It's not the goal. It's not the goal, right? Um, because if it's just the goal, I mean, an old saying is, show me a man that walks, and he'll walk much farther than a man that's doing it for a goal, right? Because it's just they enjoy walking, they get into the process, they like whatever it is, right? And so, like, in the sports world, they talk about how Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, after the years they won the Super Bowl, of course, they party, they do the things after the game, but within a few days, they're back in the training facility watching videotape. Even though they won, what could I have done better in the game? Where did my game break down? And all of I do know the sports ones, they would go out in the spring somewhere in beautiful LA, and there's a sports clinic where they work on throwing how to throw the football. And you think these guys, they own all the records. They're in the Hall of Fame. They're the best at whatever currently, all that kind of stuff. But they would spend a week learning how to throw a 10-day training on how to throw a football, right? And so, um, and so, sorry about that. But but they would talk about the process, studying the film, right? And in their case, they're the two people that admit they weren't the most physically gifted athletes to ever play that position, right? And in fact, that leads to some of the most physically gifted or intellectually gifted at something isn't a guarantee of success, right? So they fall in love with the part process, right? Um, and that keeps them going, you know, because we're talking about like when I use like Anthony Hopkins as an actor, you see a lot of his posts, other than the ones on sobriety, he'll talk a lot about the process of acting. How do you get into it? The stuff, it fascinates him. After all, he's in his 80s, right? And he's still kicking ass when he does a film. He's mesmerizing, right? He's not, Hannibal Lecter anymore, but he's like, how do you not watch him? I watched part of the thing where he was playing the Pope, one of the popes. And it's like, but he talks about the process of it. And he kind of hinted that there's a difference. And then he named all these actors he admires, right? Some of them surprise you, Tom Cruise, da, 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 da. And he goes, the people that want to be a movie star stop when they're a movie star. They never challenge themselves. They don't do new roles. I mean, think of The Rock. He's a movie star by all the, and he's great at it. I personally would not call him an actor. Right? He's got to do the eyebrow thing and whatever it is, right? But it doesn't mean he's not successful. But will he keep doing it? We don't know, right? So how do you fall in love with the process of anything? And I think of this for our field. If you're into coaching, NLP, or hypnosis, who do you always see at the conferences and at online trainings with other people? It's people that are probably pretty established in that world, and yet you see them in the seminars, taking other classes, doing stuff, right? Because it's the process of it. I was at a conference, IAC, last year, and there was a guy I know the guy, but don't know him that well. But he was doing intro to NLP, the top, whatever it was, 5 NLP techniques. Well, I'm like, shit, I'm going to this class, right? So I'm sitting there and I'm in the back, and he goes, and it fed my ego. He goes, what the hell are you doing here? I said, I might learn something. If nothing else, I want to see how you're teaching it, right? And it also taught me a great deal, because some of the stuff he was teaching, these basic NLP techniques, part of me wants to go, but then I was watching the crowd. The crowd was loving it, right? Because I have that paradox of knowledge. I know something, I assume everybody else knows it, right? And so I'll just skate over it. We all know what, fundamental attribution error is, and not really, right? So anyway, it was like, wow, that was eye-opening to me. And someone else asked that when I was in there, and I'm like, well, because this shit still fascinates me. How does it work? What are you doing different than I can do? What can I learn here? Right? And so, can you fall in love with the process of whatever it is that you're doing? Right? And again, when you look at people that have, like, Arnold Schwarzenegger, use him, he's the world's best bodybuilder, right? For a long time. And then what motivated him? Then he became more of a movie star, but he actually studied acting. He took all this stuff, and he learned how film was made. Right? I'm like, this is fascinating. Then he jumps into politics, and he had to learn the process of politics. So when you look at a lot of these people, like Elon Musk, he doesn't really invent much. He didn't start PayPal. He didn't start Tesla car company, or SpaceX. He found little companies that were working, and he got fascinated with it, and then he took it to the next level, right? So it's like, and again, when you look at a lot of these people, when you look at wealthy people, sometimes people go, why don't they just retire? When's enough's enough, right? And they'll say, well, it's not about the money all the time. They just fall in love with the process, right? And I know Bruce and he can later mention this, right? Where we see people come down, they're very successful, right? At a career, I don't think they fell in love with the process of whether being an accountant or anything. and then they come to Florida, retire, and they're dead in a couple years because they got nothing to live for, right? I mean, it's like, you know, I always tell the thing when I first opened my clinic in Venice, Florida, I had 3 sets of golf clubs in the closet. I don't play golf, right? People would bring me golf clubs. I moved to Florida, bought this place on a, plantation or one of the big golf places down here. And I played golf every day for 6 months. If you want to play golf now, I'm going to hit you in the face, right? And that was his goal. And he got there, and it was like, you know, and I only learned at the end, right before I closed that off, to start telling these people, well, maybe you need to go back and fall in love with what golf's all about, right? But anyway, so can you fall in love with the process? So here's what I was teaching the addiction group. And because I said, like, if you got a lot of people there, they have trouble with sobriety because of the cravings. The cravings are going to kick in, right? The mental obsession, the physical compulsion, right? Now the science actually backs the fact that if you get the mental obsession going, it will create the physical compulsion because it starts the dopamine dump cycle. Well, then you want more dopamine and all this other stuff, right? And so I said, okay, let's do. I'll teach you a technique that will lower your craving, right? Of course, some people go, you know, do I guarantee it? And I said, pretty much, right? Because I've seen it. So anyway, so the technique is, I had them try to access craving, which is kind of dangerous in treatment center because some of these people probably go AMA on me, right? Leave me as medical advice. And some of them, if they left, I'd just wave. I wouldn't ask them to stay. But, and then I just walked them through my version of the tapping exercises. Right? That's it, just the tapping. I add a little bit of the polyvagal DeBecker eye movement stuff. That's it. And I said, do this and it'll work. Right. So as I'm getting ready to teach it, I'm like, part of my brain's going, why haven't you done this for your nighttime sugar craving? Right. I'll be sitting there. Me and my wife lately will watch a little TV, right? And anybody else get this? You'll be sitting there and suddenly you can hear it calling you from the freezer. Ice cream, especially if you know it's in there, ice cream, or piece of pie, whatever it is, right? So I'm like, why don't I do it? So I said, okay, I'm going to do this. And then I asked them to do it at night before they went to bed and first thing when they woke up. And so I said, well, I'm going to do this myself. And this was early last week. And I started doing we'll walk through it in a minute, right? And I'm like, And my limited experience this time was, you can ask my wife, I've not had any sweets or snacks at night since I started this. And I am smart enough not to keep the shit in the freezer anymore. If I keep, Haagen-Dazs, what's that, caramel de luce or whatever in there, it's like, that'd be like me telling one of the guys in treatment, yeah, it's okay. Keep some Jack Daniels in the cupboard. It'll be fine. Right? Because I'm like Bill Clinton. I'm a weak man. Don't lead me to temptation. So anyway, so I did that, and now I'm expanding it. So what I'm going to invite you to join me is, because we got 2 weeks to Christmas, is to try to do this, like try to shoot for twice a day, just for the process of, will this work? How is it working? Are you noticing any changes? And, if you have a craving or something like that, that might be a good thing. And then after I got the evidence, especially over the first weekend, that I didn't have sweets, I'm like, well, shit, I'm going to expand this. I still work on the sweets, but just to try to realign my energy system with success. To remove the negative blocks that I have, conscious and unconscious, right? To remove those so my energy aligns with success, which is pretty important to me lately, because the bad thing about working on addiction treatment, if you're into energy, there's a lot of obviously a lot of negative energy around an alcohol and drug treatment center. There's and I'm also I believe in entities. I think there's shit there just trying to latch onto you, right? And so anyway, here's the technique, right? So think about something you'd like to change, right? And again, I start with you have your as Dr. DeBecker says, your blocks or your trauma and all that is actually stored in your nervous system as much as your brain. And if some of it started with a trauma, whether it was childhood trauma before you had the words to put to something, or even if it's trauma that happened as an adult, when you're under trauma, your prefrontal cortex, including the Broca's area of the brain where you create language, goes offline. Right? When you're in that highly charged state, you can't talk very well, right? And so there's no words to it, but the energy is being stored in your body to keep you alive. So I don't know, and it doesn't matter where it comes from, right? So you got these nervous system and wherever the blocks are, and that's why everybody's craving is different. Or when you think about a breakthrough, maybe it tightens in your throat, maybe it tightens in your heart or your stomach down here, maybe it's in your head, wherever it happens to be. So think about something you'd like to change. Sugar would be good going into Christmas for a lot of people because this is when the sugary sweets come out. So anyway, think about it. And then what we're going to do is first you start about where do you feel it in your body. And I'm going to be working on what I'm working on. So I'm going to think about when it gets me right here. Why don't I follow through on all the things I need to do to build my business? Where for me, it's right here. It's just where I feel the stuck. And kind of has a dark, misty thing. You kind of like something I'd see on the set of a horror film. I do, right? It's like right here. So, okay, I'm going to kind of tag into that. And I don't know where it comes from. It's not that important, but it's like, it'll manifest in my life as I'll be successful, and then I'll blow it up. Just blow it up, not follow through, not do things, right? And so I want to work on that. So the first thing you do is it's to release the first level of block. So as you grab your head, pull it to your your ear to your shoulder. Not so much, don't kill yourself. And sorry about that. So, and then as you're tilting, just think about the block, but then look up as far as you can in the opposite direction, right? And then look straight down, then look up in the other direction, then look down the other direction. And then kind of move your eyes around, maybe like a figure eight. Begin to move your eyes as you're tilting your head. Look up, look down, figure eight. Kind of bounce them out, we say like pinballs. Many people begin to notice the saliva flow as they're doing this, and that's just a relaxation response. And then do the other side. Look up, look down, just repeat the process. And just imagine that nervous system is going to be opened up. It's like you're roto-rootering a drain, right? So the energy can flow. Look up, look down. Good. And then gonna roll your neck around. Then we're going to do the tapping technique, EFT or TFT, whatever you want to call it. The biggest difference is between emotional freedom technique and thought field therapy is emotional freedom is more of a generalized one. But they both start with thought field starts with I totally and completely accept myself, even though, and then whatever you're working on, I'm craving sweets. Or this one is I block myself from success, whatever yours is. And you kind of say it out loud. Right? I totally and completely accept myself, even though I block myself from success. I totally and completely accept myself, even though I block myself from success. Totally and completely accept myself, even though I block myself. Then you're going to open up. And then you're going to tap on the eyebrows. I forgot who taught me this one. I cross my arms. I do it to cross the hemispheres, right? And you tap on the eyebrows and say like the opposite. So in my case, I'm aligned for success. When I was doing the sweets, I'd say calm and in control. I'm aligned. Then tap the side of the eyes. Aligned for success. And underneath the eye, on the, right below the cheekbone, stomach 5 is the pressure point. Aligned for success. Then underneath the nose, in the chin, and then your collar, the soft spot, like a little bit below your collarbone. You do it this way or this way. Line for success. And then between your ring and little finger, a little bit back. If you know martial arts, it's where they do this thing. You tap right there and keep saying, like, I'm aligned for success. And then move your eyes around again, like look up to the left, look up to the right, look down one side, down the other side, look straight up, look straight down, bounce your eyes around. Keep doing that as you say, like, I'm aligned. And then I forget who taught me this one, but it was at a conference. Then they said, do the other hand, just to balance the energy. But, and if you had any physiological craving, it would probably be lower, right? And then try this till Christmas, right? Today's the 11th. You got 2 weeks, right? Shoot for twice a day to just track the process of, is it working? And if so, how, right? And I'm trying to do it first thing in the morning. I add it to my I do some readings, I'm drinking my coffee, I'm doing some readings in the morning. I'm trying to add this, just the routine to clear my energy for the day. And I try to do it at night before I go to sleep. I have also noticed when I do it at night before I go to sleep, I fall asleep quicker and I sleep better. Of course, I say that to some people, they'll go, it's just the placebo effect. Why aren't we studying the placebo effect? I don't. What's the joke? If you OD on placebos, you overdose, you only think you're dead. But anyway, so let's try that and then just track, see if it's working, see if you notice a shift, if you've blocked your success, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, financial, relationship, whatever the success is, because I would think, to use the Milton Erickson approach, whatever that block is was only installed as a defense mechanism, right? So you won't take the risk, you won't get hurt, you won't overdo whatever it is you're overdoing. And so, and again, this goes back when I'm doing it with addictions again, is, the alcohol, the drugs, or gambling, sex, food, whatever the addiction is not the problem. Okay? It is the solution to whatever the real problem is. You don't feel good. You don't like yourself. You don't feel worthy. You're uncomfortable in your own skin. You don't know how to connect with another human being. Alcohol, drugs, sex, gambling, whatever the addiction is, if you're looking at addictions, is the solution, right? Why you see people get the drugs, the alcohol out of their lives, and they smoke themselves to death. Or God knows, I've seen this. They quit drinking, they're chain smoking, and they gain 100 pounds. Right? They're still not comfortable in their skin, right? So it's like, what's going on here? Uh, and I don't judge as I'm judging. I don't judge. So anyway, let me stop the recording. So try this for 2 weeks. Try to, I'm going to ask a favor if you put this out. For those of you on Facebook, kind of post whether this process is working, right? And just to see what's happening.